All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Um, Thank you to everyone joining us today from across the country and around the world. I'm Michael Higgs, Virtual Programs Manager at Conscious Capitalism. I am just getting over a cold, so I do apologize in advance if I clear my throat a few times during this conversation. So just wanted to put that out there immediately. But nonetheless, on behalf of the CCI team, we appreciate you taking time to learn and grow in community with us today. Today, we are very excited to be sharing space with Danielle Southcott, the CEO of Veer Group, to discuss trade winds, sailing ocean transport towards purpose. As many of you know, conscious capitalism is a philosophy that emphasizes the human nature of business, as well as a movement of business leaders from around the world working to change the practice and purpose of capitalism as a means to elevate humanity. Conscious Capitalism, Inc. is a nonprofit organization dedicated to catalyzing that movement by creating learning opportunities like today's session and building systems of support for practicing conscious capitalists throughout our senior leader network membership and engagement with our local chapters. Several times a month, CCI offers virtual gatherings like this as a way for the community to see how this philosophy takes shape in the leadership journeys and business practices of those in our network. Just a little housekeeping. Today's session is going to run for about 45 minutes. Danielle and I will be in conversation for about 25 to 30 minutes, and then we're going to transition to audience questions during the last 10 to 15 minutes of our time together. Do use the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen, and we'll get to as many of your questions as we can during our time together. Feel free to pop those questions in at any point during our chat. And again, we'll save the last 10 to 15 minutes to ask those of Danielle. I am very excited to introduce you to Danielle Southcott. As many of us remember, the COVID-19 pandemic exposed a couple critical weaknesses in our global supply chain. With 90% of the world's products spending time on diesel-powered cargo ships before ending up in consumers' hands, gaps in the supply chain, along with necessary and increasing environmental regulations, put a spotlight on the maritime transportation industry. Many efforts have been made to overhaul cargo ships over the years, but none have been successful in shifting the industry from a fast and cheap is best mindset to a better is better conscious approach. Enter Danielle Southcott, CEO of Veer Group. Through her disruptive and innovative leadership, Veer is building the world's first clean container ship that eliminates the use of fossil fuels by combining innovative sail design and green hydrogen. By creating a shipping solution that exceeds regulatory standards set forth by the UN and partnering with stakeholders who support the maritime economy, Veer is garnering the attention of big business and stands to reshape the future of ocean transport. Danielle, thank you for joining us today.
Hi, thank you. I'm very glad to be here. Thank you for the very kind and pretty accurate introduction of what we're up to.
Wonderful. Well, we'll get into a couple specifics around your work at Veer Group, but before we get there, your journey as your journey to CEO of Veer Group is quite colorful and storied. I know that you grew up in Canada, and one of the questions I had for you was, how did growing up in Canada shape who you are, and how did you discover sailing?
Well, I grew up in the Great Lakes region of Canada, so between Toronto and Montreal in the countryside north of Kingston, Ontario. And I started sailing at age 13 on board the Brigantine St. Lawrence II, which is an awesome program. You should check it out. So when I was 13, I signed up to what was essentially a 8-day summer camp, but it was on a tall ship, like living and going out for 8 days. So at age 13, it was pretty intense, but I loved it so much. I don't know, there's just a freedom out there when you're sailing and only moving the whole ship by the power of the wind and climbing. It was an incredible experience. So I stuck with that program for 4 years.
Amazing. Can you would that be would that specific boat be referred to as a tall ship?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's important to some of the our conversation a little bit later. What exactly can you help our audience visualize a tall ship?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think most people can visualize tall ships pretty easily because they've mostly seen movies with pirates or what is the one, Master and Commander, and any of these types of things. And because the word tall ship is actually sort of like a buzzword, it doesn't mean a specific type of vessel in particular. But in general, you're going to have these tall masts with yards very often and big square sails on those. So it's one of those images where you feel like you can look up and it feels like it's as tall as a skyscraper, and just a maze of ropes and canvas, and someone is climbing up beside you. And so a tall ship is like, I like to describe a tall ship as a bit of a symphony orchestra, because every line, every sail, and everything comes together, and it has to work together in a very, very specific manner. So yeah, I'm not sure if that helped or made it more confusing if you don't know what a tall ship is.
No, I think it helped, and I know that you mentioned movies that people might have seen. I learned that you worked on Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah, I did. It was so cool. I only worked on one of them, and I was helping out doing the rigging. So when I got a phone call or an email from someone asking, they said, "Oh, we need Canadians because we're doing part of the filming in Vancouver. So there has to be Canadians involved." I was like, yes, this is so cool. So yeah, we got to go out there, and we were only working with sets, so not the real ships. But it was interesting because they're full scale, and the rigging that we had to build actually had to be built safely and with real materials, because people were really climbing on it. So while the parts of the ship were not made out of wood, what we were working on was made out of actually some of the highest quality hemp and sisal fibers that I'd ever gotten the chance to work with.
Wow. So everything was rigged to spec, and for authenticity and accuracy in the filming.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Amazing.
And yeah, it was a really great experience. And I did get to talk to Johnny Depp, which was like a huge, childhood dream, and I got to check that one off. So
Is he as cool as he appears in the movie?
well, when I talked to him, he was like in character the whole time, and it was really weird. Yeah. It
Yeah,
was I didn't know, I was awkward. Like, yeah, I'm awkward just thinking about it, because
well, an actor of Depp's pedigree, I can't imagine him breaking character if he's on set. He's in the zone, right?
yeah. No, it was really interesting.
I know that so the passion for sailing was ignited when you were 13. And then I also learned that to attend one of the preeminent sailing institutions, educational institutions in the world, you taught yourself Dutch. Is that?
Yeah, and that was a number of years ago now. So the school is kind of called the Enkhuizen Zeevaart School, and it is a nautical college in Enkhuizen, Netherlands, which is, if you're going to the Netherlands, please check out Enkhuizen. It is one of the cutest towns in the whole country. And it is arguably the best traditional sailing college in the world. So they really teach you how to maneuver a tall ship. You learn modern things as well, like stability and safety and law at sea, all these things. But they also bring that traditional aspect. And I was in the last year where it was required that all of the exams all the questions were in Dutch, and all the answers were long form written in Dutch. And yeah, so and I tried to get out of it, but
they wouldn't let you off the hook, huh?
No. So it was interesting. I was concerned that I wasn't explaining myself well enough in my answers. So I ended up furiously writing for the exam, like long answers to even questions that were just 1 point. And then the second semester, the dean or headmaster guy of the whole school, he came up and he said, we've changed our policy. You and anyone else who doesn't speak Dutch are allowed to draw pictures to help explain. Because he didn't want to read my like pages of answers.
So you leaned into illustration to satisfy
Yeah.
the questions. Amazing.
Yeah. Ik kan praten een beetje Nederlands, but it's mostly gone at this point.
Yeah. Wow. So what, I was just taking I'm in the Bay Area right now, and I'm in Oakland, and I was just on the ferry, and I was just passing the port of Oakland on the commuter ferry. And I see these massive container ships, and I see the mechanisms to load them. And I recently learned actually that was George Lucas's inspiration for the Skywalkers, was the loading, the cranes, I suppose you call them. It was his inspiration for the Skywalkers in Star Wars. Kind of cool.
I never knew that.
Yeah. But what's something about the maritime transportation industry that many people may not know, that just might be a shocking fact?
Well, there's different things. I mean, there's all kinds of different things you can talk about. There's a lot of them are issues, I would say, or concerns. You can talk about the quality of fuel, which is actually a byproduct of the fossil fuel industry. So it's the lowest grade fuel of any fuel burnt of anything in the world. So typically called bunker fuel or heavy fuel oil. And at colder temperatures, it's solid enough that you can walk on it. So if we think about what we put into our car, if we think about what I would call gasoline or diesel, I think most people know now that gasoline burns cleaner than diesel. Like we learned that with the whole Volkswagen conversation. But if you were to look at them in a glass, it's not as if you could see like huge amounts of impurities floating around in that diesel. To your eye, it almost looks like diesel, gasoline, they're both clean. Imagine now having a fuel that when it's cold is solid enough that you can walk on. So it's like a bituminous sludge. And many of these vessels really require another engine that burns cleaner fuel just to heat that up so that it actually is viscous enough to burn. And
wow.
So, yeah, that's the interesting thing for me is another thing about, or fact, I guess, about the shipping industry is that it's often called the most efficient or lowest carbon footprint per unit form of transportation. So if you're going to compare a giant container ship to a truck or a plane or what have you, it is the lowest carbon footprint per unit. So say per container or whatever, per apple, whatever.
Sure.
And so people often tell me that it is so efficient we should just leave shipping alone. But I think what they don't understand is that is only due to the economy of scale. So because they're so massive, the numbers work out that it seems like a clean option. But when you remember what kind of fuel they're burning, you know that there are some pretty easy ways that they could continue to clean up and make it a lot more efficient.
Yeah. And did I understand correctly that at any one time there's 50,000 container ships out in the open seas?
I'm not sure if it's 50,000 container ships, but it's definitely around 50,000 is the number for the commercial fleet. Yeah, and around 15, so 1/5 of the largest container ships in the world emit the same sulfur and nitrous oxide as every single car in the world combined. So just
1/5 of that fleet. Wow. Yeah, I'm following the math here. That's a substantial amount of emissions.
Yeah. So the shipping industry is kind of out of sight, out of mind. But what most people don't know is that 90% of everything around us has been shipped on some sort of ocean shipping, right? So whether it's this pen, this cup, this paper, it's all mostly 90% of it has been on a ship. And so when you start thinking about the heavy fuel oil or the bunker fuel that is touching the lifespan of everything around you, you start to realize how pervasive and also how crucial the shipping industry is, even though you don't tend to think about it on a day-to-day.
Yeah, I feel like I want to take a pause and invite the audience to just look around whatever physical space you're in right now and let that land that 90% of what you're seeing in your field of vision spent time on a container ship. Wow.
So just think about the miles associated with that and the carbon footprint that's associated with that and the trip, the travels, that this shirt has been on. Yeah.
Goodness. Um, Another sort of follow-up question is what is something maybe that people don't know about the global supply chain? I think back to I think a lot of people got a window into ocean shipping when the particular I can't remember the name of the vessel, but it got stuck in the Suez Canal.
The Ever Given.
Or what was it called? The
Ever Given.
Ever Given. Okay. Yeah, and suddenly that was a very newsworthy item, and everyone was sort of, well, the timing was such that people were waiting on shipments of various things and learning how sort of fragile the supply chain was. But are there any thoughts that you have about just what is something that people may not know about the global supply chain that could be interesting to our audience?
Well, it's something I find myself thinking about a lot is the container itself, so the shipping container, and how important that is in our day-to-day lives. And I think people put a lot of trust or faith or have a lot of confidence in the shipping industry. And when I come and talk to them about, alternative shipping options, it's amazing how much faith they have in the shipping industry that their items are safe and they figured it out and it's good. And, why do we really need to question that? And how could you do better? But I think when I started thinking about the containers, which were developed in 1956 by Malcolm McLean, who's a trucking guy, I begin to realize that it's essentially a post-World War II invention that hasn't really been improved since then. Yes, we've put refrigeration in some of them, but other than refrigeration, it hasn't evolved. And so what we're dealing with is a heavy, cumbersome, the opposite of Web3, digital twin, metaverse. It's the opposite of that, right? And one 20-foot container weighs 2 tons empty. And these containers are not collapsible in any way. They're a rigid steel and wood box.
Mm-hmm.
So that means that if there's no cargo, they're being shipped back and forth empty. And so you have these big, heavy steel boxes that have quite a weight to them that are just being shipped back and forth empty. And it's like that container sort of system or industry is part of the shipping industry that's like almost more interesting in some ways. The inefficiencies that are allowed to remain due to lack of competition, it blows my mind.
Wow. So it is quite common for containers to be shipped back empty as they're
Yes.
transporting goods to and from.
Yes.
Wow. Well, I want to get into the part of the conversation where you have endeavored to sort of tackle what you see as some of these issues with shipping and ocean transit. I want to start by just asking you, where did you find the courage to sort of take this on? I mean, it seems like one of those industries that you just acknowledge. Perhaps we're grateful that our goods arrive in a timely fashion. But it just seems so entrenched and, I mean, it sounds cliche, but massive.
Yeah.
Right? Where did you find the courage to sort of tackle this?
A lot of people have asked me that, and I don't have an answer. I think when you just believe in something, then courage doesn't become a question anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, if you believe that something is right or wrong, or somebody should be defended, some things just come from within and you're just going to defend those things. If it's a person or an animal or whatever, or you want to prove that something is possible, courage doesn't really come into it anymore. So the fact that I genuinely believe that we can be shipping clean today with existing technology makes it very easy for me. I'm not afraid, because it's every day I essentially defend my thesis, which is what I'm doing with you right now.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no major holes or question marks left. So I don't have fear of it. Yes, they're a lot bigger and they have more money and they're more powerful, but I know that what we're doing is true and that we're going to get there. So there's no more fear.
Yeah, that's interesting. It makes me think, you're, as you say, I love that phrasing of you're defending your thesis every day, right? It's like you're making contact with your purpose on a daily basis. I know that your ship designs have been challenged by committees. So there's a way that you're sort of making contact with your purpose on a daily basis, which I can see kind of eclipsing that fear, right? It's like every day I'm defending, I'm sharing, I'm asserting. One of the things that I want to, I do want to couch the conversation a bit in conscious capitalism's tenets. And it sounds like you answered the call of higher purpose. Can you share a bit about your approach to sort of tackling that on a very practical level? And I'm happy to add a little more detail to dig into that, but maybe that's enough.
Yeah. So you're saying, how do I? Yeah. Can you rephrase that for me?
Yeah, certainly.
Exactly what you want.
So I know that you just as a sidebar, I think you have a 200-ton captain's license and you had spent, I think, 12 years in the industry, working in various capacities. And I think, I guess what I'm asking is, when you saw that opportunity, what from a tactical point of view, what was it that you did to sort of bring that higher purpose to life? And that might be like, I developed a business model based on what I was seeing that was very alternative to my experiences.
Yeah. In order to answer or empower what I believe my higher purpose is, or what the purpose of the company is, I decided from day one to start with a blank slate. So in the shipping industry, what you often see is somebody trying to fit a square into a circle, or the other way around, which is, I'm not criticizing it, but if you want to put sails on an existing vessel, or you kind of put scrubbers, or you put like all these different technologies onto existing designs to reduce the carbon footprint or increase efficiency, however you want to say it, but you're kind of like adding on, or you're like subtracting, or you're working with a shape that is already predetermined. And so what I really wanted to do, in order to just allow that sort of, as you say, higher purpose to blossom, was to start with a blank slate completely and say, we are going to be working with zero carbon fuels, zero combustion propulsion. Take me to the drawing board. We're going to be socially responsible. We're still within the capitalist system, because we want to show that capitalism doesn't have to only be for financial profit, but within the confines of the capitalist system. So we want to make money. How can we change everything else to be exactly what we want? So we take it from a blank slate, and that allowed me to sort of draw whatever we wanted.
Amazing. And so prior to Veer Group, you had a company called Sail Cargo, correct?
Yeah, so I'm the founder of Sail Cargo Incorporated, which is a wonderful company. You should definitely follow them on especially Instagram and YouTube, Sail Cargo Inc. And I announced my resignation around mid last year and resigned on November 1st of last year. But it's a wonderful company, and it's beautiful. You should really check the videos out if you haven't.
Well, let me just second that. It is a remarkable Instagram account. So do check it out, people. It is it's just gorgeous, aesthetically beautiful content. So
Inspiring, I would say.
Indeed, indeed. So with your with Veer Group now, and the departure from Sail Cargo, what are you looking to do with Veer Group?
With Veer, I really wanted to address industrial questions, like the higher scaling industrial, sort of commercial container heavy industry questions that they're not, Sail Cargo Incorporated is addressing different questions,
Mhm.
and they are essentially fundamentally pretty different. So with Veer, it's kind of like we're working with steel. So immediately it's a non-regenerative resource, right? We're working with industrial shipyards, which may or may not be in China. We're working with containers in these industrial ports. We might be having industrial partners. So for example, some of our potential clientele could be energy companies, so even LNG. And so it's kind of in some ways sacrificing, it can be seen as sacrificing some of the values. And so Veer is a little bit different in that respect, but I wanted to show and demonstrate that even at an industrial level, we can still be doing this in a more clean manner.
You don't happen to have the model that you showed during the presentation to the kids, do you?
I do.
Do you?
But it doesn't have the mass. If you can,
Oh,
I
it
turn
doesn't.
my camera off
Okay.
for 2
Okay.
seconds. If I can turn my camera off for 2 seconds, I can show it.
Okay. And I'll say this for the benefit of the audience. This is a model of one of Veer Group's ship designs. And I think it really is best illustrated by sharing the model. So we'll give Danielle a moment to pull that model up, and it sounds like she needs to put the sails on it.
I'm literally putting masts on the ship right now.
Amazing.
Like so funny.
And as we wait, I do just want to invite people. We'll be moving to our Q&A section here in the next
Okay, are you
couple
ready?
minutes. We're ready.
It's not actually done, and my husband is so sweet. He built this for it was around 400 or 450 students, young students that I was presenting to. So here we go. We still have to paint it.
Okay, there we are.
It's
A
not fully
model of the future of shipping there. Wind powered.
Yes.
Awesome.
And so this is actually to scale, but not everything is accurate. So you can see back here, there are what I'm going to call yards. These are just made of tubing, but these yards, there's only one shown. That's not actually accurate. There would be 5. And so this sail would have 5 different sections, each of them would. And so each of these sections can be removed individually to account for how much wind and everything that we want. But the scale is actually accurate.
Amazing. Thanks for sharing that. And I understand that you guys are leaning heavy into technology to help best utilize the sails. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the entire suit of sails, or all the canvas, can be set or furled by the push of a button in 6 minutes.
Wow. And the secondary power, so I do want the audience to know that you will be the first wind-powered cargo ship with secondary power. There are other companies that are looking at similar technology, but you will literally be the first company that will use wind as its primary source of power.
So at an industrial level. So if we want to talk about the history of moving cargo, or we want to go back to that conversation of tall ships, we have been moving cargo as a species, as a humans, for debatable 2,000 to 5,000 years. People will give me different answers. I'm not a historian, but thousands of years. And essentially, we have always moved cargo with sail for almost as long as humans have really existed as we know them. And in many parts of the world, that essentially came to a stop around World War II, beginning of that sort of time. So around 1930s, early 1930s. But up until then, we used large sailing ships without engines that sailed all the way around the world. Now, the interesting thing is that that shift to combustion engines didn't happen everywhere. One place that I love to give an example of is Madagascar, where they don't have the road infrastructure to even support really having a lot of fossil fuel industry. As I've never been there, this is what I read and what I've been told. But so their sailing cargo fleet, which does not have engines, sustains to this day. And so if I wanted to say we're the only this or that, or whatever title, it can be very challenging because there are currently apparently over 200 decarbonization projects that include wind around the world right now for shipping. But what I can say is that we will be the first clean container ship to cross an ocean. And so we are the only one that I'm aware of at an industrial level that will be using wind first.
Amazing. And I know that you're looking at using the same major shipping routes that are used by these diesel burning container ships. So, I mean, you're sort of in the same lane per se.
Yep. Yeah. So essentially what we're really focusing on in terms of voyages and routes is more or less crisscrossing the North Atlantic. So whether that's from West Africa to the eastern seaboard of US and Canada, or if it's from South America, Caribbean up to Europe, that's kind of our playground for this type of vessel.
Amazing. So Danielle, we've seen the model. It's June 22nd, 2023. Where are you with your ship designs at the moment? And when might we see production of your first boat?
We are around 5 weeks away, approximately, from submitting our tender packages to shipyards. This means that our preliminary design is done. We are just checking all the little details before we send out those very exciting bid packages. We received approval in principle from the American Bureau of Shipping in October of last year, which means, and we had no major red flags or no major bottlenecks or barriers. So this was a very big step for us to have complete classification pre-approval for this new design with innovative propulsion. And yeah, I mean, I'm ambitious. If you talk to my project manager, he might say, oh, she's a little bit ambitious here, but nothing would make me happier than if we could be cutting steel this year. So, but maybe first quarter next year, I'm not sure. But we have shipyards very eagerly, physically chasing me down, shipyard representatives at Nor Shipping. So there's a lot of eagerness from this, and the shipyards want to be the one that builds this, iconic flagship for the green movement. So yeah, and the build shouldn't take that long. So I've had preliminary suggestions, so they're not quotes, that building the hull would take as little as 7 months and a little bit more than 12 or 14 months. I think 7 is a little crazy, but
yeah.
But certain other parts may take longer. So the rigging, the hydrogen systems, all that sort of thing. But yeah, we should be transporting in 2025.
So with 90% of the items that I'm looking at right now, being on shipping containers, it sounds like there's a tremendous market to move products by ocean. Is there a specific industry or certain sectors that you're looking to partner with?
So yeah, we've received interest from a wide range of prospective clients, and I found it interesting that some of our most ambitious clients are energy sector. So especially even like green hydrogen, they must have green shipping in order to call it green hydrogen. So if they want to export from a certain country into another country, they need to have green shipping in order for it to have a clean footprint. So I did not expect to have the energy sector being someone who's knocking on our door, but they are. Other people other interests have been expressed are shipping within polar regions, because of course we do not have the risk of of an oil spill or black carbon that's going to be emitted and landing on the
Wow.
snow. So because when we start thinking about polar regions, Arctic ice flows, and then this is in many ways a much more environmentally safe and friendly vessel. So that's interesting. But for me, if I could just say, our perfect ideal client, it would be an iconic mission aligned brand that really wanted to elevate their brand further by eliminating their carbon footprint. So this would be, for example, signatories of the COZEV Clean Shipping Ambition Statement. So there's an ambition statement by COZEV, C-O-Z-E-V, and that includes IKEA, Amazon, Unilever, REI, I don't know, like a whole bunch of companies that say we commit to cleaning up. And so if we could partner with someone like that, it would help to elevate our status as well.
Mm-hmm. Incredible. So we do have some questions coming in from the audience. I think we'll jump right to them.
Yeah.
So the first question is from Tasha or Tashi. Apologies if I'm mispronouncing, but how would you express Veer's higher purpose? And how would you express your personal higher purpose if they're different?
So we say the vision statement of Veer is oceans of solutions delivered. And so I think we want to have many different solutions. And for us, solution means a clean option, so clean energy option.
Mm-hmm.
So oceans of solutions delivered. So many different types of solutions explored, but then delivered. Because something that I find is that there's very heavy investment and focus on innovation, and there is less focus and investment on deployment of innovation. So if you want to look through the patent books, research thesis papers, innovation awards, grants, you're going to find endless, incredible innovations that we could be deploying today, but we're not. And that makes me very sad. So that's why we are oceans of solutions delivered, right? We're going to be deploying or delivering these.
Mm-hmm.
And so getting it out there is very important. And then
Wow.
personally, like a higher mission or vision for myself would be to try to expand the positive impact I have by inspiring, hopefully, everybody who's listening today to know that they can do it. They can go out there, they can deliver these things, they can start a project, and they can all make a difference. You can make a difference. And so, yeah, by demonstrating that, so not just talking, but putting my words into actions, I hope to achieve both of those things.
Wow. And I have to say, I'm so inspired by your work in such a heavily regulated industry. I mean,
yes.
books and books, I imagine, of regulation to deploy your vision. So amazing. We've got a couple questions specific to your ship design. Angela asked, what happens when the wind dies as you cross the Atlantic?
Yeah, so if the wind totally dies, which it can, it doesn't really normally in the North Atlantic, but it can. We do have the hydrogen fuel cell range. So we have an electric motor that uses hydrogen fuel cells with compressed hydrogen gas that will give us a range of 1,200 nautical miles. So that would be like going from, off the top of my head, I think Jamaica to New Jersey, just driving. So while we can do that, that would not really be how we apply that. Essentially, when we look at our weather routing on the ocean, we can see that there is wind here and there's like no wind there, heavy wind, low pressure, high pressure. And so we can actually use our hydrogen to drive to the next beneficial wind zone and then start sailing and push that button again. And 6 minutes later, all the sails are out. And there we go again on a more appropriate voyage plan.
Amazing. And as a follow-up, Allison, I think this answered your question as well. And you must be a sailor because you use the word doldrums. But she says, how will using wind first deal with extremes that can be experienced in Atlantic crossings, i.e. the doldrums? and on the other hand, storms. So I think you touched on that. You sort of power.
Yeah, well, we're not targeting the doldrums. You're absolutely right, which is essentially the equatorial belt that is calm. That's not our target market. This vessel has been specifically designed to handle a bit more wind. So vessels can be designed with different wind factors in consideration. And yeah, so into the other side, this vessel is very seaworthy. She has a full keel, big, heavy draft, all of this ballast, and like lead ballast as well. And I'm not saying we're going through storms purposefully. Safety of the crew and vessel is always number one, but this vessel is designed to handle some wind.
Amazing. And Paul asked a technical question. He said, will the vessels use foils in the hulls to maximize efficiency and performance?
So no, we will not. This is a part of the future vision of the oceans of solutions delivered. One of those solutions would definitely include foils, but we are essentially what's called a displacement hull versus a planing hull. So foils they can transfer a displacement hull up out of the water to be planing, but we're essentially in the water heavy displacement vessel.
Awesome. And Steve is asking, can wind technology be retrofitted onto legacy ships? Are there any challenges there?
Yeah, wind technology absolutely can be retrofitted. You can check out a whole bunch of different technologies, including one that's called Bound for Blue, and the founder or co-founder, Cristina Munoz. She was just the winner of the Young Entrepreneur Award, where I was like co-finalist, but she got the prize. Very, very happy. So check out her company because they're amazing, Bound for Blue. And that's one example of a number of them. There's also another company called Smart Green Shipping by Diane Gilpin. And essentially it's like an airplane wing that they just put on the boat, and it can they have different ranges that they claim for efficiency, but you can just put that onto an existing vessel.
Awesome. And Sean is wondering, being the first wind-powered cargo ship with heavy reliance on new tech, what kind of workforce development, training, or educational programs are going to be required for crews to sail and maintain one of your vessels?
Thank you for asking that question, Sean. This is, in my opinion, the greatest bottleneck that is not identified by future e-fuel people in conversations. So whether we're talking about methanol, ammonia, whatever, fuel cells, there is different training that is associated with that. Whether or not the regulations are up to speed, you have to acknowledge that these people are working on these boats and they need to feel comfortable and competent in order to manage the vessel safely, which is why crew training is a huge part of what we're doing. We've partnered with, in a preliminary stage, so I don't want to overstate it, the University of the Highlands and Islands. So in Orkney, Scotland, they have what was the first government-approved hydrogen safety training course. And I've been advised for quite a long time by the main program director, I think, Mr. Mark Shiner. And this is something we talk about all the time. And that also goes into not only the handling of the ship and the sails and all these protocols at an international maritime level, so getting those real certifications, but when you have new tech on board, such as the fuel cells, in order to not sort of void your insurance and your warranty and these things, they also have to receive special training, or you have to be flying in certified crew. And that is something that we are in constant conversation about with tech providers. Awesome.
Well, Danielle, I do want to be respectful of your time and our audience's time. We committed to 45 minutes. Is it okay if we go a minute or two over?
For me, yeah.
Okay, great. Well, first things first, I wanted to give you an opportunity to share with the group about your sponsor. You were inspired by the St. Lawrence and your experience there. Just share with the group what you do as a thank you each year.
Sure. Yeah, so I did start this with Sail Cargo Incorporated, and we have carried it on now to Veer Group. is that Veer sponsors one young lady to sail on board the St. Lawrence II every year as a little thank you or give back to the program that inspired me and really opened my eyes to what I was truly capable as a person. This is just a beginning stage, and we really aim to be having a whole youth training program and supporting amazing programs such as the St. Lawrence II throughout the lifespan of not only our ships, but of Veer Group altogether. So love giving back and paying forward.
And I'll follow up with you, Danielle, if there's a link or something that I can include in the outbound email, so that people can follow up and learn more about that opportunity. That's fantastic.
Amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. And finally, where can people follow you or learn more about Veer Group and kind of follow you on your journey?
Yeah, thank you so much. So we do have a small Instagram page. You can check it out at veer.voyage. So our website and all social handles are at Veer, VEER .voyage. And you can also definitely follow us on LinkedIn. That's sort of a new platform we're seeing is better for Veer. And yeah, www.veer.voyage. So please follow us, please get in touch, especially if you're interested in shipping as a client or as an investor or a crew member, please be in touch.
Awesome. And for the audience, I'll include those links in the outbound email, so you'll get those as well. Well, Danielle, thank you so much for spending time with us today. Your work is truly an inspiration. Again, what you're endeavoring to do, disrupt a massive industry, and with your mindset of just staying true to your higher purpose, it's really an inspiration to me, and I'm sure I speak for the audience in that respect. I do want to, I'm going to just drop a quick survey link into the chat. If our audience members could take, I believe it will take you 30 seconds to answer this question or questions. I think it's just 3. It does help us with future programming. If you are new to conscious capitalism, visit our website to learn more about our movement and our organization at consciouscapitalism.org. If you're an executive implementing conscious practices in your business, check out our Senior Leader Network. We have some more information about that on our website as well. We do have a couple more virtual gatherings scheduled for the month of July and August. So stay tuned to our events page. But again, immense gratitude, Danielle. Gratitude to the audience. Thanks for spending your morning with us in conversation with Danielle from Veer Group.
Thank you. I hope you enjoyed it. Really appreciate the opportunity. Have a wonderful day.